Go! No, I'm just kidding. All right. Are you ready, Debashish?
We're all
Okay.
we're all ready to go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Hey,
Philosophy Friday. We're here with Debashish Bindra, who is running HR for us here at LILA Games.
that's
Now,
right.
we actually had Debashish present on a specific learning topic for us, and we do this on occasion here at LILA. And maybe we can get Paul into the screen a little bit more.
Hey,
But Debashish, could you talk a little bit about what you're going to present on, and then go ahead and feel free to present away.
Great. So basically, just a little bit about me. So, like, I love reading a lot, right? And this presentation is also inspired by one of those books which I, really found out to be very fascinating. So, this presentation, let me just quickly share my screen here. So, this presentation is basically by this author by the name of Robert Greene, and he had written this book called The Laws of Human Nature, wherein he documented various stories across history and how it is relevant to us in our working lives and in our professional lives, roughly speaking. So let me just quickly start here with one of the stories which the author says. Basically, it is about a Russian writer. He's a very famous writer by the name of Anton Chekhov, right? So, like, he was born in a very poor family where his father used to beat him every day, and he had five siblings, right? So, what his father used to say that he did not beat him out of anger or any apparent malice, but out of love. It was God's will that children should be beaten, right, to instill humanity. But on the other hand, the justification that he was giving, he was also seeing that like his father was a living contradiction, right? He was lazy, a drunk, and a quite dishonest person with his customers, despite his religious zeal and his correct moralism, if you might say, call. So what this did is that this instilled a fear in him, and he always had major anxiety and panic attacks. In moments he had to himself, he would always go to the graveyard since that was the only safe place in his tough neighborhood, right? So living in Russia during the 19th century was a very tough task because the roads were always in ruins, and prisoners were let loose to hunt stray dogs, and there were open potholes which can cover up your right till your head, right? And the entire streets were filled with those potholes. So what happened after that? So one day his brother decided that enough is enough, and let us go to Moscow to pursue our dreams. And two of his brothers finally left to pursue their dreams, and soon debt started piling up on Anton's father. And fearing prison, he also fled to Moscow in secrecy. So his mother was left all alone to clear debts, and they had to sell everything, including their house, right? With nowhere to go, she also fled to Moscow as soon as possible. So Anton was left all alone at 16 to fend for himself and complete his education. So he was completely abject by his circumstances, and there was quite a feeling of despair, feelings of anger, depression that visited him daily, that why is he going through all this at such a young age with such tough times, right? So like through very hard times he finally found himself a job, and that was more of a tutor, more of an educationist, where he would go to families and whenever they would go on vacation, so he would not earn for days and he would sleep hungry, right? But that was his day job which he was only able to find. So what happened that during all this struggle and all, he decided to work one day as a doctor and study very hard, right, for this in the only library that was available to him during that time in Russia. So there, along with his studies, when he was studying medicine, he also devoured a love for philosophy and literature, and suddenly started connecting with the world in a very deep way, because he started seeing perspectives from a very different light, right? He finally began to settle down new thoughts, and new emotions came to him. Work was no longer something that he dreaded, so he loved absorbing his mind in his studies, and tutoring had made him very proud and dignified of himself, right? Earlier he used to see from a very victim perspective, okay, why the hell am I doing this even in the first place? But then suddenly a shift started happening in him, and he started seeing this from the perspective of, okay, this is something reputable, right? I can take care of my own self at such a young age. But meanwhile, what happened in Moscow? So his brothers had turned to drinking, and that same pattern started again. That same blaming their father for all their misdeeds, right? The whole environment, family environment, was very negative and not conducive. So they were also living in a very small, cramped room because there were very low finances that the family was having in general. So what happens after this, right? How realization happened to him, and how did he started becoming the famous Anton Chekhov? This is where his journey started. So one day after being abandoned for several months, he started feeling tremendous sense of empathy and overwhelming sense of love for his parents, just by one day he was going to work and suddenly this started coming to him. Now this was a very big realization if you're coming from a perspective of a 17-18-year-old child, right? Who has been beaten in life for roughly 5 to 6 years or even more than that. So he started seeing the context from which his father was coming from, and dropped all negative emotions towards him. That was very huge for him. So he decided to move into Moscow with his family, and instead of complaining, he decided to solve his family problems one step at a time, right? So Anton started taking charge of small and daily things, like he started doing the houseworks, and seeing him, his brothers also started taking up responsibility for their own life. And he had written this in his diary, a motto, that no more bowing and apologizing to people, no more complaining and blaming, no more disorderly living and waiting. The answer to everything was work and love, work and love. So this is quite a huge statement from coming from an 18-year-old boy, right? So what all changed in his life, right? So roughly speaking, he got into a medical college at 100% scholarship, and from that he started saving money and got more money from his father and elder brother to put all his younger siblings into school so that all of them could go into education, right? He inculcated a sense of reading among all his brothers, and they would discuss late till night about the various scientific and philosophical findings. So the complaining and the self-pitying attitude now changed to a very proactive behavior where his family was excited about their future instead of complaining and going into a victim loophole, right? So now you might ask me that how is this entire story related to us, right? Should we wait for realizations in life? Should we start reading literature and drop our current day jobs, or how to integrate all this, right? So not really, it's not rocket science. It's just one simple tool that we need to observe in our daily life, and that simple tool is observation. Observation, right? So what do I mean by observation, roughly speaking? So you just observe yourselves and others deeply, right? So this story is a paradigm. The Anton Chekhov story is a paradigm for what we all face in life, right? We all carry with us traumas and hurts from early childhood. So in our social life, as we get older, we accumulate disappointments and a lot of slights for not having things go the way they should go in our own lives, right? At times, we are often haunted by a sense of worthlessness, of not really deserving the good things in life, right? We all have great moments about ourselves, a great doubt about ourselves, and this also leads us to, you can say, negative patterns about our self-esteems, right? And then that further leads us to habits to numb that pain. It could be excessive drinking or excessive smoking or patterns of those sort, right? So without realizing it, we assume a very negative and fearful attitude towards life, right? This becomes a self-imposed prison, and instead of taking more and more risks in life as we grow older, we start shrinking from taking risks, right? So how can we free ourselves from this prison, right? This usually comes from a very simple thing. It's just a choice, a change in attitude, a change in your mindset, right? We all can follow such a path just like Anton did. So this freedom essentially comes from adapting a very generous spirit towards ourselves and others. By accepting people, by understanding their nature, we can liberate our mind from obsessive and pity emotions, like what he might be feeling about me. Instead of us being the actors and protagonists, we totally do whatever is needed in the situation, and we stop reacting to everything people do and say around us, right? So what this does is that it gives us a superpower. Our mental space is freed up for higher pursuits, for more creative pursuits that would give us value in the long run when we are on a deathbed. We'll not die of regrets. So just roughly speaking, some common patterns which you might see across the board, in your working life, or let's say whenever you're going somewhere, these tendencies might be in you, right? So these are very common roadmaps, which I might say. So the first one is the hostile attitude, right? Now this is a person who looks at the world from a lens filled with hostility, right? They seek to control the world by becoming the source of hostility themselves. So they're always right, the I know it all guy. And their life is full of battles, betrayals, and persecutions, but it does not originate from them, right? It's always the other person who is responsible for their own hostility. The second type of person is the anxious attitude, right? Which we all have on one level. So these types anticipates all kinds of obstacles or difficult situations that may arise in future. They're not even certain that it would come, but they may arise. So with people, they often expect some sort of criticism or even betrayal, but what they in reality feel is losing control of the situation, right? Their solution is to limit what can possibly to narrow the world they deal with, like basically just trimming off all greater risks and just trimming it to their own comfort zone. So at work, you might see them as ferocious perfectionists, right? And micromanagers trying everyone and everybody to go things their way, right? But what this does is that it eventually sabotages them in the long run, right? Because they are trying to keep on top of too many things, and it is not possible for human mind. Because on average, we can just stay on top of roughly 5 to 7 things, right? The third type of attitude is the depressive attitude. So if you go to their childhood, right, as children, these type of people did not feel loved or respected by their parents, and instead of seeing that there was a fault with their parents, they internalized all that negative judgment and imagine that they are indeed unworthy of being loved, right? So they have a secret need to wound others, encouraging behavior such as betrayal or even negative criticism that will feed their depression and make them happy, because all are at my level. That is their thought process, that is their understanding of the world, and no one should go ahead of me, because then they'll prove me wrong. The fourth type of attitude is more of a resentful attitude. So they always see that they are being wronged in the world, right? They tend to project this even on the outside world, seeing oppressors everywhere. So they are experts at scanning people for possible signs of disrespect, or they're not other people are not respecting them. And you'll often see these type of people are prone to pick up very petty battles, right? That I haven't gotten my tea or something, or those kind of things, right? They are always resenting their circumstances, and they are unable to contain their resentments which they have developed over time, and they keep on lashing at every simple thing. The final one, like, this is one of my favorites because this is very predominant in the culture which I come from, right? That these type of people just want to avoid responsibility all the time in their life. So people with this attitude see the world through the lens of their insecurities, and they are generally related to their doubts about their intelligence and competence, right? Their main goal is to avoid any responsibility or challenge in which their self-esteem might be at stake, for which they might be judged in a larger audience, right? They constantly tend to seek escape routes, right? And they will find the perfect reasons for leaving a job early and changing careers. So they become alcoholics, like deep alcoholics or addicts of some sort, always falling off the wagon at the right time, but blaming this on everything else and their bad upbringing in life. So now you might ask me, like, how should we live our life, right? What should be our ideal attitude towards life, challenges in general, right? So of course, this is what I feel would work. Like, this usually works in most of the circumstances. This is not a perfect way of living, but usually this goes. So what Robert Greene calls is that, we should build an expansive attitude, a very positive attitude. So it's a state where you view everything in your life as a part of a larger whole, right? Instead of being too specific on specific problems, right? You ignore those specific problems and then see how this problem, challenge, and person can contribute to my growth in the long term, right? So what this would help us to do is that, it would help us to create a distance, just because most of the times we are too immersed in the present, right? And it would help us to create a distance and see things from a larger term perspectives. So how to view the world? Basically as an explorer, as a crusader, as a captain of a ship, right? Who is out there to just explore the abundance of the world and what this world has to offer to us, right? whenever any adversity comes, so how should we embrace, like how should we view that, right? We should simply embrace all the obstacles as learning experiences, as a means to getting stronger in life, and asking ourselves, right, that how can this learning impact me, let's say 5 or 10 years down the line? Maybe writing a diary also helps, but yeah, this should be a general attitude. How do you view yourself, right? It's simply to break your limitations every day and embrace your fears one step at a time, because that would help you develop self esteem. How to view the people around you, right? Because people can be nasty all the time, right? It's not totally in our control, but how we respond to them is totally in our control. So we can just simply ask ourselves these two questions, right? That am I creating joy and value for the world around me? Let's forget about the other person. He might not be doing so, but am I creating joy and value for the world around me? Or am I spreading negativity in the world, right? So, whatever your situation is, these two tools or these two questions can really help you come out of those negative, you can say, self doubt or self critiquing that you go when someone says you something, right? And how to view your energy and health, because this is by far one of the most important things. You can pick up any physical activity, right? It could be walking, dancing, running, jogging, whatever like turns up your crank, right? And then try doing that thing at least 3 times a week. You'll see your confidence, energy would increase massively. Your self-esteem would go off the roof, because you are consciously creating steps to improve your own self, right? So just to summarize it, what the whole point of this presentation was, like, the first tool is observation, right? You observe people deeply. Don't take them at face value at what they present, but understand what type of people they are based on their past experiences. Like, where are they coming from? What are their true motivations? The usual five, there are usually, like, 5 types of common attitude which you'll see across the board, right? It would be the hostile one, the anxious one, the avoidant one, the depressive one, and the resentful one. And finally, we should always aim in our own life to, like, go towards a more expansive attitude towards ourselves as well as others.
Well, thanks, Debashish. I think that it's been a number of weeks since you first gave that presentation at our all hands, but I feel,
It was just as good as the first time.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things I think about is just how closely my life mirrors, and no, I'm just kidding. My life compared to Anton Chekhov, I've lived a very easy life. But having said that, I also feel like maybe some of these negative attitudes, might, I feel like I have some of those negative attitudes. Which one do you think I have, Debashish?
I might say the hostile one, working with you closely. The hostile one usually does the job for you.
Yeah, for me personally, I think that the anxious attitude is something that I have at times, and I realize that though, and I do feel like that's something I need to work on. One other thing I kind of realize is that for people who study Stoicism, it does seem like there are some similarities where, the Stoics say that you can't control the world outside of you, but you can control how you interpret the things that happen, and you can control kind of the inside instead of the outside. And Marcus Aurelius, Ryan Holiday kind of popularized the concept of the obstacle is the way. So if you see a problem in life, how to interpret that in a positive rather than negative way. But I definitely feel like this is something that it's really great to remind people to do, is to like try to interpret things positively. And to your point on observation, I felt like there were 2 parts of the observation. Like one part you said, these are common negative attitudes that we should watch out for. But then very interestingly, and this is something Paul talked to me about before, I think it was based upon a book by David Data that suggested that, as you're growing up in your childhood, there may be things that have happened to you that impact how you react to the world. And so just like with Anton Chekhov, or I think when you were presenting, you mentioned you should also observe, like if we're observant about what may be things that happened earlier in life and how that impacts us, that may be something else for us to also observe in addition to those five negative attitudes. But Paul's got his Slay coffee, which is the world's greatest coffee. But
It's pretty good. So yeah, I kind of have comments on this. I was writing down some stuff as your presentation was going on, and I was like wondering, do I really have it so bad when I hear some of those stories? Like, am I really unfortunate? Do I really have a reason to be or feel bad? I don't go to sleep hungry. I don't, I wasn't beat, for no reasons and all of those things. And so that's the first thing that I took just from your presentation that I think is a priceless wake-up call. And I also had some things that I wrote down, like, do I really love my studies? Like how this man loved his studies. And I was also reminded of the dangers of alcohol and how I've seen that go upon people in the gaming industry. I was just telling someone the other day, I saw they were drinking a Red Bull, and they're also a smoker and stuff like that. And I said, hey, you better watch out. I said, in a big project like this, I've seen at least 20 people change dramatically in their body, getting larger in weight. And save your money. The guy saved his money. And he helped out everyone. And I wrote that down. And then it started getting into attitude, and this is one where I'm having kind of troubles with my own personal self. I was trying to talk to a girl on a dating app, and she said, "Are you a morning person?" And I said, "You know what? To tell the truth, I don't know what kind of person I am anymore. And I've completely lost sight of anything. And I don't know what my attitude is. And I don't know what my attitude was when it was anything at all." Right now, to give you a little bit of insight for those listening, I'm building a company from 0 to 1, and I'm willing to do anything I'm willing to go anywhere. And that comes with, the universe has responded to me. I'm in Bangalore. I got here and got a sty in my eye. I got COVID. I got a rash on my arm. I'm out of whack. I'm out of whack. Someone was asking me, "Oh, are you sick?" And I said, "I think so." I don't know. I can't even know if I have COVID or not. I said, if I have COVID, I'm like living in a constant state of, eating aspirin for breakfast and stuff like that. And so when I wrote down which one am I, I don't even know anymore. And I think the biggest thing about the presentation was observing ourselves deeply. And from this presentation, I'm going to actually spend some time to try to remember who I was before I had 60 emails, responses in my Slack that I needed to get to, who I was and who I want to be before I was having to decide how to increase my own output, or what can we do to get better estimates on the art pipeline, or how we can fix culture issues within the design team, and if I need more people to hire and stuff. And there's just so much time and so much stuff that I'm not even sure. And I'm learning more about myself through other people's observation of myself than I am from my own observation of myself. People are telling me, "Oh, you need to relax," or "You could be more chill," or "I think that was rude," and stuff like that. And it feels conflicting to ways I've been trained and talked to about, just 8 months ago or something like that. "Oh, I'm the weakest leader. I should be more tough. Most of my guys aren't working on the weekend. And what's up with your team? Are you teaching them how important this is and stuff?" And it's like, be graceful, be aggressive, be this. And then the observer effect, right? I don't spend much time observing it. I think that in the midst of the feedback that I get from my team, I don't bring enough feedback on my own self. And so when I receive feedback from someone, it's all new to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, "You know what? I've noticed that." You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, "You have a suggestion for me?" "Well, you tell me what it is, because I don't have one for my own self." You know what I'm saying? And so I actually feel like I need more suggestions for myself. I need more observation of myself. And I may actually work on schedule. In fact, today I scheduled an hour to walk away. It's in my calendar. You can check it. It says Paul is spending an hour away from his desk to think. It's a meeting that I made for my own self. So, and this has really helped me. I think it was timely. I'm really glad that you invited me, because I could definitely use these kind of talks, and the way that you presented it is so well broken down, taking a huge subject to something really small. I mean, I needed this super bad, and I hope other people find value out there, valuable out there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Debashish. Maybe like a few other points that I could raise is that one, I think for anyone who feels like they have a problem, like Anton Chekhov's story is so powerful because of the circumstances that he had, and he was able to rise above it. And so for us living in today's world, for most of us, I would say, we on a relative basis probably have a lot easier. And so if he can do it, we can do it. The second thing is like the library, right? The library was opportunity. The library saved Anton Chekhov, if I interpreted the story correctly. And so, I would definitely recommend other people, like we're trying to create an opportunity platform at LILA. And so for other folks out there as well, other companies, like how do you create opportunity for other people? That's one of our missions at LILA. And finally, I love that notion of work and love. So Debashish, what that tells me is that when I ask people to work the weekends, that's just love, right? Right. It's work and love, work and love. Anyway, all right. Well, with that, are there any sort of last minute messages or other things that you think it's important for our audience to know, Debashish?
I think, yeah, definitely just to give some practical hooks, like how we can integrate this in our own lives, right?
Yeah.
So usually what happens is that, we live on an autopilot daily, regularly, right? So if we can just take a small notepad, there are 14, 15 lines in that notepad. And at every hour, we are just breaking down maybe just one word we are feeling, right? So maybe we can just do a hourly alarm clock kind of method thing, right? And just whenever that alarm goes off, we just reflect in that small notepad, okay, this is how I felt in this hour. Is this more productive for me in the long run, or is it harming me in the long run? That can be a good way to integrate both the observation of it as well as how you can improve it. Maybe something on these lines. Just a practical tool I wanted to end this on.
Okay.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Debashish.
Awesome.
There you have it. Hopefully you can do more of these in the future. I know you're going to be doing more presentations for us at all hands. So thanks so much. And for the audience, we will catch you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.